Hey, listening to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. As always, I'm Grady, and unfortunately, Josh will not be joining us on Skype this week. He's had a cat-related technical problem on his side, so it is just going to be me this week, running you down the Raw and the SmackDown. Next week, hopefully, we'll see, but he should be back for our Bash in Berlin and our NXT No Mercy preview show. But this week, we got Raw, we got SmackDown, and let's start it off with, I guess, those big championship matches, because that is what we are building towards. Gunther opening the show on Raw, showing off how scary he is, and rejoining with Ludwig Kaiser as well. I'm sort of torn on this one. I think I really enjoyed their pairing while we had it. Kaiser is amazingly well in that mouthpiece role. Well, not even a mouthpiece, just sort of the side piece, the accompanying person to Gunther. We've seen it work 100 times and it works here. But I was also quite excited once he had broken off from Gunther to sort of show a little bit of what he could do on his own. And he was starting to do it, and I know, if I recall correctly, there's an injury in there that sort of hampered it, but he was getting into these feuds and sort of around that Intercontinental title scene, and I was quite excited to see where things would go. So I don't know if this is just a one-off to get Kaiser onto the Bash in Berlin card in the corner of Gunther, or if we're going to be going back to status quo now that Gunther holds the championship and is sort of that big bad scary guy that he was when he was holding the Intercontinental Championship for that record-breaking reign. I'll have to, keep tuning in and see where we go after Bash in Berlin, but yeah, not something I was mega excited for when I heard that those two had rejoined, just because I wanted to see Ludwig go out on his own and sort of make his own mark. Right now he's just Gunther's lackey, and I'm worried that he's going to get painted as purely that and sort of be put in a box if he just continues to fill that role. But with Randy Orton on the horizon, I know it's going to fix that King of the Ring dodgy finish between him and Gunther. But the match itself, I think Josh and I already mentioned it last week, we're pretty certain going to be a Gunther retention. This is a guy who holds titles for 1,000+ day reigns, thinking to his NXT UK run, thinking to his Intercontinental run. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm sure he's held a championship for longer than he hasn't in terms of the WWE since he's joined. And I don't see his World Heavyweight Championship run being a month. Will it be 1,000 days? Probably not. But I expect him to make it through to probably WrestleMania next year. Maybe we have another Sami Zayn moment where somebody can dethrone the almighty unstoppable Gunther. But we'll have to wait and see what the future sort of holds for Gunther in that fashion, because Randy Orton seems to sort of be not a filler feud, but something that we've sort of thrown in. SmackDown superstar coming over to Raw. Randy's been involved with the Bloodline this entire time, and now we've just sort of shunted him over here to finish this off. And I look forward to seeing what Gunther's sort of main feud after this is going to be. We had a few people floating around, obviously Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, also in that upper card. Damien Priest might want another go, given he just lost the title. Finn Balor might want to prove he's better than Damien Priest. Maybe he gets a shot at Gunther. And Seth Rollins as well, potentially hovering around in that scene. There's quite a few names, quite a few different people that you could see jumping on up after Randy Orton from the Raw roster. And yeah, excited to see who Gunther goes against. Right now, he's really leaning into that heel persona, but we've seen him switch it up to tween and sort of switch it up almost to face, just sort of being Gunther. And that is whatever alignment he needs to be. And, we've seen good people, we've seen bad people, we've seen everybody go up against Gunther and fall. The stories work. where they put him with Damien Priest. Everyone said it was going to be rushed, a foregone conclusion, and they end up telling an amazing story, turning Damien Priest like mega face out of it, and then putting on a pretty good match. Same here, you put Randy Orton in, it's a filler, it's just put together because of the King of the Ring stuff, and they're putting together a pretty good feud in the build-up to Berlin, so don't ever count Gunther out. He can tell a story, he can cut a promo, he can make anything make sense, and it's fun watching this sort of build as we go through. And then talking about things building as we're going through, the Wyatt Six still looming. We saw their in-ring debut, and now we've got they're interacting still only really with that Chad Gable storyline, where Chad and the Creed brothers are still feuding with the old Alpha Academy, and then the Wyatt Six just keep attacking Chad at every point. It is this weird, twisted three-way feud where one of the teams only really... It's almost like a chain, right? Because the Wyatt Six want to attack Gable and the Creeds. Gable and the Creeds want to attack the Alpha Academy, and the Alpha Academy just want to be done with Chad. And so I feel like this obsession with the Alpha Academy is what is constantly costing Chad Gable. They lost the in-ring debut of the Wyatt Six, and here when it was Maxine Dupree versus Ivy Nile, a match where quite logically Ivy Nile could come out on top of, being the stronger of the two competitors, we ended up with a no contest because Sister Abigail came on out and just took out all of the American-made stable, and you see them sort of lining up, 3 men and a woman on this side, I guess 4 men and a woman on the other side, but we don't know if Uncle Howdy's going to be getting in the ring all too often. And I think Gable just needs to let go of Alpha Academy, focus up on what is in front of him, and maybe he has a shot at repelling the Wyatt Six attack, because they are the hot new thing coming in. They are paying homage to Bray Wyatt, to Luke Harper, and so they're gonna obviously be booked strong. They're going to obviously be quite the force to be reckoned with, especially in these early days. Not looking good for American Made, but I'm still constantly entertained by Chad Gable, by the Creed brothers. Quite high on the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile personally, so kind of want to see sort of the Wyatt Six defeat them, change them a little bit, and then just hit the let's go button, and see what they can do. So many different things. The New Day continue their storyline. Odyssey Jones sort of filling in for Big E. Xavier Woods still not being a mega fan of it. That blood continues to boil. Hasn't exploded yet. We'll have to wait and see with that one. Bronson Reed takes out The Miz, and then we get his unstoppable force. We get Braun Strowman on the other side. And now we know, I guess, what the big meaty men slapping meat match is going to be for Bronson. He was taking out not lower tier talent, but smaller talent, with R-Truth, with The Miz, and with Seth Rollins. And now Bronson Reed, Braun Strowman, that's two big boys clashing in the middle of the ring. And this is where you have your opportunity to make or break Bronson Reed. If we are going all in on Bronson and he is going to be, the next big, strong, big guy, then he needs to go over Braun here. I don't know if we get this match on Raw or if we get this match at Berlin. If we were, 2-3 years ago, I'd say it goes on the pay-per-view. It would make sense, but nowadays Triple H seems to be running sort of 5-6 match pay-per-views, and I think we'll end up seeing this either next week on Raw or the Raw after Berlin, and I look forward to it. And as I said, I really hope Bronson Reed comes out on top here and cements his place. There's something really cool about seeing Bronson land 6 tsunamis on Seth Rollins, but seeing him do it to Braun Strowman and putting down such a big man, I think that's just another level above. We got the Judgment Day. They continue to sort of reign supreme. They really had a reinvigoration with the introduction of Liv Morgan and switching out Rhea Ripley and Damien Priest. We had seen them floundering for quite a while. They weren't picking up any big wins. Rhea was still being featured and Damien still had the title, but it was the Rhea and Damien show. Those were the two that were being featured, were picking up wins. Even though Dominic Mysterio was still on TV, he wasn't picking up wins. You know, he was losing to Ray, and it wasn't really looking amazing for them. And now we switch it up, and Liv Morgan's on top of the world. Dominic's picking up wins. JD and Finn have the tag titles. Carlito's still just there, but we're seeing a lot more success out of them. And I think that's the story here, right? That not only was it a betrayal to get rid of Rhea and Damien, but was it the right move? They have seen way more success in the short term since making the switch, and for me, it makes sense to be the right move in terms purely of the outcome. It does sort of plant Finn Balor into that leadership position. We'll have to see if that develops or if they're going to continue with the sort of everybody is equal, except Carlito, piece around it all. But I'm loving what the Judgment Day is putting on. I loved it even when it was the Rhea Ripley and Damien Priest show. I think the Judgment Day stuff is still great storytelling and great building. So glad they pulled the trigger when they did, and now we're in that next phase. I do think with our Berlin match coming up, Priest and Rhea versus Dom and Morgan, we're probably going to end up seeing Priest and Rhea come out on top, set up future storylines down the way. If the Judgment Day constantly come out on top, there's not really a story to it. Let the good guys pick up one, and then, you know, maybe at the next show after that, we get Finn and Priest, or Finn versus Priest. We'll get Morgan versus Rhea, or maybe we just get Priest versus Dom. There's so many different people, you know, that Priest want to beat up out of the Judgment Day. We've seen him get his hands on a couple of them, Carlito and JD. But as weeks go by, I'm sure that, I don't know if it's Finn or it's Dominic that's in his sights as the main person. Obviously, Finn is the one that cost him the championship, but Dominic is the one that wronged his best friend in Rhea. Lots of different ways they could go with it. But the Judgment Day looking strong. And yeah, I really like the this next phase or this next iteration of the Judgment Day. I think it was the little bit of spice or the little bit of freshness that it needed. And yeah, perfect timing for it. And speaking about the brand new Judgment Day, Josh, although he couldn't be here with us today, did select the entrance theme this week. So we are going to be listening to Liv Morgan's theme. You're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady. And let's take a look at SmackDown. Obviously, with Raw, we talk about the Judgment Day standing atop. This new iteration of the Judgment Day standing on top and looking like quite the formidable foes. We look over to SmackDown. We see a very similar thing, as it is week in and week out. Now we've got the Bloodline 2.0 standing on top. We saw last week Roman Reigns took them all out. We were a little concerned what that meant in terms of credibility. Josh said, you know, Roman's got to get beaten down the next week or the Bloodline are DOA. And we saw it exactly as he wanted it. It was the Bloodline standing tall, Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga standing over top of Roman Reigns with their ones in the sky. And I think that's a really powerful image, especially when Roman Reigns has been this unstoppable monster. And although when he returned, he already was cheered as the good guy, this is him earning it, I guess. If he just returns and takes on Solo, we'll probably all still cheer him, but the last we saw him, he was an absolute pain in the butt. So hasn't really had that redemption arc. This is that. He's gonna be beaten down, a little bit of a taste of his own medicine. You know, the Bloodline 3-on-1 attacks. Nobody comes out to help Roman Reigns this week. And I'm sure over the coming weeks we'll get more and more people coming out, whether that's Jimmy Uso, whether begrudgingly he can convince Jey Uso, or if we get some sort of mutual respect partnership between him and Cody Rhodes. There are obviously different people who will be coming out, eventually building up into that Survivor Series, into that War Games match between the Bloodline and whoever Roman Reigns can wrangle on his side. Potentially nobody, and then everybody deciding on the day that they want to side with Roman Reigns because he's been convinced. But we needed this little bit of redemption here. I would have preferred it, much like Josh, if we'd gotten this last week instead of this week. But this also definitely highlighted Fatu as the big difference maker, right? Even if we look to the original Bloodline, when the Usos would interfere, they could probably interfere and change a match outcome. But when it was beatdowns or whether somebody needed to get in there and hit a finish on somebody, it was Solo coming in with the Samoan spike, and the Enforcer was always the one that was getting real physical in the beatdowns. And now here we are, switching the roles around, and it's Solo's Enforcer, Fatu, that's really the difference maker. He wasn't here last week and they lost. Fatu, even though he's in a moon boot, is here this week, and they managed to get on top of Roman and beat him down and stand tall to end the show. He's just that integral of a part for Bloodline 2.0 that you really need him, and I think that's going to show when we get to War Games just how important Fatu is to the overall. Obviously, Tonga Loa missing still. I don't know how many of his eyes are working right now. Tama Tonga, quite a fearsome fellow as well, but in terms of the storyline, Fatu is a head and shoulders above everybody else, and potentially even stronger than Solo Sikoa, but doesn't seem to have too many eyes for the Ulafala at the moment. Everybody else is going Gollum face, treating it like it's the One Ring when they see it. Tama Tonga is giving it side-eye. Roman Reigns going crazy when he gets to wear it for 3 seconds. Real dangerous sort of, I guess, symbol of power. Everybody wants to hold that power. And for now, it's around the neck of Solo Sikoa. And I think for the foreseeable future, that's where that is going to sit. And then looking down the card at a different spot, Blair Davenport coming out on top of her match against Naomi and setting up that 3 versus 3 matchup with Blair Davenport as a part of the Unholy Union going up against Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, and Naomi. We saw that latter trio already doing some stuff around, I think, WrestleMania last year, looking pretty good as a group, and so I'm not sort of mad to see them reunited. They obviously haven't pulled the trigger on Jade versus Bianca just yet. Really feels like that's something that they're going to be saving towards a WrestleMania to give it that spot where it deserves. And maybe this does end up leading to them recapturing those women's tag team titles. We did see them successfully defended by Alba Fire and Isla Dawn on Raw, taking out Damage Control and Pure Fusion Collective. Hate the name, but did manage to come out on top and still keep a hold of the titles. A little bit longer of a run than I think most people were giving hope for the Unholy Union, especially after their win at Clash. Just sort of thought maybe it would be a feel-good win and we'd hot potato the titles back to Cargill and Belair. We're giving them a good run. They're going over some good teams. In fact, Damage Control and Pure Fusion Collective are kind of 2 of the top teams, I think, in the women's tag team division right now in the WWE. And so it makes sense, I guess, that Bianca and Jade may recapture those. We might see that down the line. We might see it at Bad Blood. You'd have to be rushing it to see it at Bash in Berlin, but we could see it a little bit further down the line, maybe on a SmackDown or on a wherever we need to put it. I like the addition of Blair Davenport into the Unholy Union. I think it's a trio that also works and makes sense. I like Blair Davenport as a wrestler. Obviously, if you look all the way back into our archives, we interviewed Blair back when she was wrestling in New Zealand. I will never forget the fact that we were technically her first interview. Unfortunately, due to some medical reasons, she doesn't remember a whole lot of her time wrestling in New Zealand now. But that video will still be there as something that I can look back on quite proudly. And then now seeing Blair go up on the big stage of the WWE and go up against, Naomi, Jade, Bianca, is cool to see. Although I don't expect the Unholy Union to come out on top in that 3 versus 3. It will still be cool to see. And anything that gets Jade featured more on the show will obviously make my partner happy, who is always fond of the fact Jade Cargill being on their television screen. I think I would get absolutely flamed if I didn't mention the tag team number 1 contendership match. It was DIY versus the Street Profits, an absolute banger of a match. I don't know what else to say. It was amazing of a match. It was great tag team content. Ultimately, I think the right team came out on top with the Street Profits. You could have gone either way, but in terms of the Bloodline versus DIY, obviously we saw that DIY just having the championships. Now Bloodline versus Street Profits, a little bit of a change up, especially with Bobby Lashley's contract running out. The Street Profits were up in the air in this sort of uncertain position, and now we do have at least a short-term spot for them, heading towards those WWE Tag Team Championships. Do I think they'll capture them? I think there'll need to be some severe clouds all over the place or other such interference. If Roman Reigns comes down and distracts them, I could see that happening. I don't see necessarily the Street Profits playing into that overall Bloodline storyline. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We will have to see, but I think the match will be good. If anything, the Street Profits and DIY showed that there's a reason they are 2 of the top tag teams in the WWE in this match. And so if you put them in there with Tama Tonga and with Fatu, who are also great wrestlers, Tama Tonga won countless tag team championships, and Fatu looking amazing since his debut. It's going to presumably be a good match, assuming that the chemistry is all there and everything works out well. So excited to see Street Profits versus Bloodline. And yeah, we'll have to look. It would be like 80-20 in terms of 80% likely that the Bloodline do retain, but there's that little slim chance. Maybe, just maybe, the Street Profits are going to get something amazing out of this. And lastly, just while we have a little bit of time, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, we knew they weren't one and done. They'd been playing it up last week. CM Punk whipping Drew McIntyre with his belt. Josh said, I think, yeah, we're going to get a strap match. I don't know if he said it on the show or if he said it in our chat, but he was like, yeah, we're going to get a strap match. And here we go. Bash at Berlin. It's going to be Drew McIntyre. It's going to be CM Punk going on for a strap match, which will be presumably the second match out of the trio after we saw Drew McIntyre win at SummerSlam. Most likely you'll see CM Punk win here in Berlin, and then we'll head to Bad Blood. We'll put it in the cell, and we'll raise the stakes, make it mega personal, even though it's been personal for the last 6 months, arguably 8 months, but at least for the last 6 months it has been really personal between these two. But we just raise the stakes, put it in a cell, and just watch these two absolutely destroy each other. I think one of the better storylines being told at the moment. It took a slow burn, obviously injuries happening here and there, but there's something about CM Punk and there is something about Drew McIntyre and just how well both of those men can tell a story, whether it be on social media, whether it be on the weekly shows, or whether it be bell to bell. They're great storytellers, and when you put two great storytellers together, you only ever get greatness. And I think removing Seth Rollins out of the equation, giving him some time to heal up, with Bronson Reed taking him out with the tsunamis, really gives this feud time to breathe. We weren't entirely sure what way they would go because we had three people embroiled in this sort of feud with multiple fingers and multiple pies. We write Seth Rollins out. We let just purely the Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk part breathe, and then once they finish, perfect time for Seth Rollins to come on back, reignite his feud with CM Punk, and to ride that through. So maybe after Bad Blood, maybe looking more towards the Survivor Series, Seth Rollins return, or we can put something in between if Seth Rollins needs a little bit more time. But that I prefer them being two separate feuds. It was cool they touched on them. It was cool they set them up. But in terms of execution, I think it's good to just let the Drew McIntyre CM Punk parts play out before trying to rush into the Seth Rollins or rush into setting up the next thing. Sometimes you just got to focus on the thing that's in front of you without just running straight on into the next one. All right, well, that is all we have time for this week. It's been great talking to all of y'all. As obviously, hopefully Josh is back next week. But if you want to check out more from Wrestling Roundup, you can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/Wrestling R&D Up. Or you can visit our Twitter page, twitter.com/Wrestling R&D Up. Or you can go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/Wrestling RND Up. But I'll see you all next week.